Well, I was gonna call it to order. I'll call the meeting to order at 7:31. Could you stand and please, prayer and pledge of allegiance, please. Mr. Gopal.
Lord, we're meeting here tonight to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon these activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. And as always, we thank you for being the source of our guidance tonight. Amen.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Lorraine is absent. Krug is present. Tucker?
Present.
Gopal?
Here.
Catrick?
Here.
Kessler?
Here.
Reed?
Here.
Okay. I would also like to note that the Township Attorney Jack Belzer is here, Operation Manager Tom Broker. Did Ryan come with us?
He's down there.
Fire Chief Ryan Bowles are also present. I believe we have our Township Engineer Alan Lawrence. Is he the only one that's?
Yep, that's all.
What's Andy's?
And we have our
Snyder.
department.
And then we have Officer Andy Snyder from the Genesee County. In Mr. Lorraine's absence, we need to appoint a temporary chair. I just need a motion to appoint.
I'll move clerk crew.
Support.
Okay, all in favor? Well, I better do a roll call. Tom?
Lorraine is absent. Reed?
Yes.
Patrick? Yes. Krug?
Yes?
Kessler?
Yes.
Gopal?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Mr. Brooker, would you please go over the recording announcement, please?
So to members of the public attending tonight's meeting in person or via Zoom, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded to be shown on Public Access TV, Spectrum Channel 191. Recorded meetings are also posted on the Fenton Area Community Television YouTube channel. For those attending via Zoom, we ask that you keep your microphone muted until we reach portions of the meeting where public comment is allowed, at which time further instruction will be given. For tonight's meeting, there is a special assessment public hearing for Enid Boulevard, during which public comment will be taken. All other public comment will be accepted near the end of the meeting. Meeting materials are available for download on the Township's website, www.fentontownship.org.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Are there any requests to amend tonight's agenda? Anyone? Okay, I need a motion is in order to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, Mr. Broker.
Krug?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Gopal?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine is absent. Motion carries.
Thank you. The next is meeting minutes. Included in the packet are the meeting minutes for July 19th regular meeting. Are there any corrections or requests for revisions? If not, the meeting minutes stand approved as presented. Next is expenditures. Are there any questions regarding any of the invoices? Okay, a motion is in order to approve the expenditures totaling $798,555.53.
So moved. Support.
Roll call?
Reed?
Yes.
Gopal?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Lorraine is absent. Krug?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next is a public hearing for the proposed street improvement special assessment district for Enid Boulevard. This is a public hearing on the creation of a special assessment district to repave Enid Boulevard. The total estimated cost of the project is $280,000. The board will now accept public comment on the following. the creation of the special assessment district, the proposed boundaries of the district, the necessity for the improvements, the preliminary plans for the improvements, and the estimated cost for the improvement. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board on the Enid Boulevard special assessment? Okay, if you'd go up to the mic there, sir, and give us your name. It's there at the podium, I'm sorry.
Look at the picture.
Seth Ravendall, I live on Enid Boulevard, and I think there's been a lot of work put in by the neighborhood to get this going, and I just want to make sure I keep my questions at the right context. So at this point, is this where we would ask questions about
Yes.
the plan?
Well, like I said, we will cover the creation, the plan, the cost, boundaries. So most any question you might have, we'll try to provide what information we can to you.
And should I hold my question until the end? You're going to present
No.
that? Okay. I live at the farther end of Enid Boulevard, and I understand there's been a lot of, I've only been there a little over 10 years. So I understand there's a legacy that goes before me when they originally paved it. Many of the people on the street will notice that the center of the street has got a lot of degradation. Water and traffic are usually the two highest to degrading an asphalt surface. And we've noticed, especially recently with the little deluge we had a week or two ago, it was very obvious the drainage problem at our end. And I think there's been some proposals to maybe just mediate that with some retention area or something like. So I'm just hoping that we cover in detail that plan, and will we be reprofiling the road so that we get proper drainage so that this fix hopefully has a little longer longevity than perhaps what was there. So anyways, that's what I'm hoping that we cover in the meeting today.
Mr. Lawrence, did you hear the question, please?
Sorry, I had to unmute before I could answer anything. Yes, that I did hear the question.
Can't hear you, Alan.
Yes, there's been lots of concerns about the drainage in the area and what to do about it. Probably the best way of going about it was the original estimate from the road commission that would actually go in and completely redo the road, curb, gutter, everything, and release that. I understand that cost was a little bit high for the residents and they didn't want to go that route. I don't know anything about a restoration, I'm sorry, a retention pond to be able to hold it. There was a couple of areas to put in some catch basins to be able to carry the water, especially in a couple of standing areas, which is very noticeable. If you notice it down at your end, there was a couple other places that also had that problem. And it looks like the road commission is trying to adhere to that or take care of that the best they can with a limited amount of work.
Okay, I guess
Okay.
I still have the concern, but I understand the presentation. Maybe as we go further, it'll become a little more clear. Just want to voice
Okay.
it.
Well, the details of the drainage improvements will be done during the design phase. So the decision to move forward has to be based on the cost estimates. And then the details will emerge once the design is done. And then they'll bid out the project. So we're not going to have detailed answers at this point. What we have is a cost estimate that we believe that will cover, the entire improvement, including the drainage improvements.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else, please?
Hi, my name is Cindy Perez, and I live a couple of doors down from Mr. Ravendall that was here. I may have the year wrong, but I think it was around 2007. I spoke to Bonnie, and I know we kind of looped Alan in on it as well, because I believe that it's the same Alan. My mom is Betty Walker. You're Alan Lawrence, right? Is it Lawrence? Okay, I wasn't sure.
Alan Lawrence is our township engineer.
Okay, all right. And so at that time, they talked about putting, it was proposed that drains be put in or something, but it never moved on, other than talking about that was the only solution for it. Haddon has drains, and I don't know that they have any of the drainage issues that we have. That was put in their road. I'm not sure if that was done through an assessment when it was done. But I guess my concern, because I am in one of the areas that floods, is that if it's not done in such a way to properly, reconstruct the road so that drainage is put in, which I don't think was actually proposed to us. It was just said that was an option that I'm not sure who deemed it too expensive. I mean, it's very expensive. But it just sounded like they skipped over that and said that was an option, but nobody was going to want that, so we'll do the catch basins. Unless I maybe missed some correspondence. I'm not sure.
What was communicated to the township was that a survey of the residents, because I believe that the projected cost for the full reconstruction of the storm sewers was $800,000.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little more than triple.
Right.
About triple what's being proposed now. And the word we got was there wasn't enough support to pursue that option.
I never received anything as a resident there. That I only received the initial suggestion that we repave the road, and I think that cost, if I remember correctly, was $2,500 to $3,000 without anything to do with drainage. And I voiced my concerns that, it doesn't seem to make sense to try to improve the road surface if we're not addressing drainage, because it's going to really degrade in the low areas, much quicker than in the others, and that's only going to probably exacerbate the problems for those affected by water, the flooding. But then I received a notice that said that, that was the position of the road commission was that reconstruction, and that was very expensive, or around 10,000 per parcel, I believe. And but I never received any kind of a survey to kind of voice my opinion that, $10,000 is a lot of money for me too, but I would rather have the road fixed properly. It's hard for me to imagine, being on Enid, where a catch basin would go. We're all really tight down there. I'm not sure where we're going to get a catch basin, that's not a bigger problem for certain properties in particular, where we're not all going to be satisfied with the end result, because, it doesn't help to have a retention pond in your backyard either that's catching everything. If it's going to be designed in such a way that it all ends up in one particular spot other than sort of dispersed throughout the street as it is now, it just seems as though I'd rather spend to have it fixed correctly and have the longevity of the road be 20 years versus possibly 10. Because if they're thinking 10, I imagine in the areas where it's really wet or where it tends to hold water, that's going to degrade even sooner. And it just seems as though raising the grade at all is going to, further, cause more rainwater to collect in the properties that are affected in the low points. I don't know.
First of all, the road, the elevation of the road will not change. They're milling off and paving the same depth.
Okay.
And as far as I said, the details of the drainage improvements aren't known yet. I know the engineers looked at potential locations for catch basins. They're not talking detention ponds, catch basins with outlets to the wetland. And they will design it in a manner that will best drain the road. They're very confident that will work. But This is not the time when we have those specific
Okay.
details.
In Alan's opinion, though, it sounded as though he maybe said in a short way that that didn't seem like the best way to, deal with the problem. Just sort of a cheaper, sort of fix to satisfy those that would like the road to be
Well,
resurfaced.
The engineer is always gonna say the best solution is
To do it right?
do it. And he'll tell me that every time. That's the best way to do it. But if that's not acceptable, then we have to look at alternatives.
Okay. Is there information about the survey or the number of people that were surveyed and responded that the cost of the other
It was not done by the
improvement?
township. It was not done by
Okay.
the township. It was communicated to us from residents.
Okay, because I'm a resident and I wasn't able to communicate with you that I would rather have it done right. So I guess I'm voicing my opinion that,
Mr. Scher is gonna address that when he gets
Okay.
to speak.
all right.
Thank you.
My name is Tom Shear, and my wife and I were shepherds of this process of getting the issue of the road repair out in front of the community. And on at least 2 or 3 occasions, I personally did a hand drop of information about the project and providing the best information we could get about the options that were available to us. People that responded to the mailbox drop provided their email address, and we had at least 4 or 5 emails that went out during this period to advise everybody of what the status was and what the progress was that we were making and the feedback we were getting from the Genesee County Road Commission as well as the Fenton Township. The parameters that we put around that was based on the feedback information that we got from Genesee County and Fenton Township regarding the cost of addressing the remilling of the road as well as addressing the drainage issues. That's where we came across the estimate of $280,000. Recognizing that the best option would be to have storm sewers in place. We asked for an estimate of that, and that's when we got the $800,000 estimate back. The sense that we had was, unless there was an absolute requirement for storm sewers, the original proposal of remilling the road as well as putting 2 catch basins in would be the most pragmatic solution. And so that's where we headed. I can assure you the difficulty getting, we did wind up with getting a rather significant majority, but that was not an easy process to undertake. And it is my considered opinion that there is no potential within the community to get majority approval for an expenditure of $800,000. I could be wrong, but that's my experience.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir?
Context and all that sort of how's it going?
So, once again, Seth Ravendall. Actually, there's a couple areas on the street that are probably pretty bad. One near Tom's house and one right down by the area that Cindy and I live in. And actually, the drainage today is remediated by a culvert that was put in private funds. It was before my time, so if we're going to arrest for somebody for violating a code, at least let me escape the building. But there's a low area on my property between myself and Barry Warren that owns the garage next to me. There's a low spot there, and there's a ceramic culvert that was buried years ago that goes into that pond area behind the swamp area. I'm fine with that. In fact, Barry and I are even to the point where we would welcome the road commission to say that's a viable way to escape the water from this area. We're going to dig up that part that you've spent all that time trying to clean up and plant grass and make as an area for, you know, for the families to use for, I don't know what to call it, recreation, but relaxation, and repair that in order to use that as a cost-effective alternative to putting in a full-blown storm sewer along the length of the road. But I have not been approached with any sort of request to that context, nor has Barry. And I can't believe that the Genesee Genesee Road Commission has any other area they're planning to drain it than that, because between that area and maybe a couple of neighbors left or right of me is really the only place you can go unless you significantly change the elevation of the road, and I just heard that's not in the plan. So for me, I'm just trying to understand what's in the context of it, wanting to make sure that whatever I can do, I'm offering to help. I'm also not interested in that being the area and someone coming and saying, now I'm going to dig a 6-foot hole along the side of this area that you guys just repaired because that's the cheapest way to give the water somewhere to run to. So that's where I'm just trying to go from, trying to understand when are the details and when do we at least get to provide some feedback to them, not wanting to be a roadblock or not wanting to be uncooperative, but wanting to at least present what's there. It's very clear if you stand in front of those houses, you can look east and see the road that has a crown, and the road is actually in pretty good condition. And if I look west to the area just before it starts to go up the hill where I can physically see the concave in the road, the whole center of the road's eroded, and every year it gets its fair dose of cold patch, which then comes up, and it's just a mess. It turns into a lake. It's muddy. There's silt there. It's just a bad area. So that's, I guess, where I'm coming from is I'm wanting to make sure that we plan to not just mill and pave, because that is simply going to just make the water's just going to gather longer now because we've put a better seal over the pond. And it will, as Cindy said, erode quick because heavy traffic and water are the two largest, tear up of asphalt roads. So that's where I'm coming from. I don't want to attack. I don't want to promote. I just wanted to present that at least that's the area I'm in, and those are the concerns I have. So.
Would you
Tom,
be in favor
can I
of
answer,
the higher cost?
Can I answer that?
Would I be in favor of the
800,000 versus 280?
I would, if that was our only two
I'm
choices,
just-
I would. I think there's a solution that lays a lot closer to the 280, which involves coming to, Barry and I and saying, hey, can we deem the center of, can we take 5 feet either side of your property line and make it an easement and put a culvert pipe out there is a lot cheaper than $800,000 in a full-blown storm sewer. But that's just what I'm wanting to make sure of, is that we stay pragmatic in this and that we don't go to the cheapest, low-cost, low-durability solution, but also say that the only option we have is to go over the top and just basically, evacuate or excavate the whole road and put in a full storm sewer. So hopefully where I'm coming from, I've done an effective job of presenting.
Mr. Krug,
Yeah.
may I answer some of this?
Yeah, we could hardly hear you, Alan, but.
Okay, I'll yell. Is that better?
Okay, that's great. Yell at me,
Okay.
Alan.
I'm getting closer to the speaker. To begin with, what you're talking about, I want to emphasize there is such a thing as value engineering. Now, if you ask me the best way to go at something, as Tom's already explained, let's rip it out, let's put in something brand new, and let's put in curb and gutter, and let's spend $1 million. Now, if I look at this and I look at the value engineering, which I have been out there, I have looked at it, and I have done it recently, there are at least 2 areas that are easy to find because that's where your asphalt is tore up. That's where the water's been setting. That's where the catch basins need to go, not in the middle of the road, but off to the side. Now, it may be that the road commission so deems it that they want to concave it and do it in the center. That's not for me to decide, since the road commission is doing this. But I also want to emphasize when we say value engineering, we're not throwing something out there that is just cheap just to get by with. We're trying to give you a product that is maybe not the Cadillac, but we're trying to give you a very nice Corvette. Okay, so when you look at both of those things and you look at the cost that is involved, I think, my opinion, engineering opinion, you're a lot better off with this $280,000. Now, if you so wish and you want to go through with $1 million project, I'll stand up and cheer for you. But at the same time, I'm also going to look back and say, man, we could have done this a lot cheaper. Now, I wanted to explain that because I don't want anybody thinking just because we went from $1 million or 800,000, whatever it was, down to 300,000. That doesn't mean it's cheap. Doesn't mean we got away with, oh, let's just throw anything out there. It's still engineered. We still care, and we're still trying to do it right. I like your attitude in that you're giving up an area which we need, or the road commission will need, to be able to put catch basins and run that water too. If you're willing to do that, that makes this whole process then a lot smarter, and I think will give you a product that will last longer than 10 years. Sorry, I'll be quiet now.
No,
Yeah.
keep yelling at us.
And I guess I need to be very careful to not offer Barry's property, right? I mean, I just want to make sure that's not the proposal I'm making. And also the proposal that I'm not making is that we dig a huge catch basin on that side, but that we use that to bring some sort of culvert to support the drainage. So I have not been approached, and maybe that means hopefully whoever, if they're planning to dig in someone's area or change the landscaping in someone's area, that, you know, that's on their property boundaries, hopefully that person has been approached, and I haven't been approached. So I'm assuming
There will
that's
have
not.
to be, there will have to be an easement given.
But don't worry, I think if Barry was here and you weren't, he'd donate your property.
I'm really confident you're right, but, okay, thank you. I think I've voiced my
Thank you.
concerns.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board with any concern? Yes, ma'am.
Might be a silly question at this stage, but I'm just curious if anybody has considered the fact that we're a peninsula in the middle of a lake, and whenever we, I'm included, decide to build a home on Enid, should we start putting restrictions on how heavy the trucks are that can come down the road?
I really don't have an answer for that.
We don't have the
No.
authority to do that.
Just
Well-
a question.
Well, the truth of the matter is, if you ask the guy that yells at us a lot, what they'll tell you is that the road is designed to handle the things that you're thinking about trying to keep out. That would be garbage trucks, trucks hauling water, all of that stuff. All of the county specs are such that the road is designed to handle all this. Now, if it's not properly maintained, will it bust them up quicker? You betcha. You know, it's not perfect, but the starting point, at least, when you do the math, that's what the engineers do, is that it can take those kind of loads.
Doesn't sound like it sometimes.
Well, it doesn't look like it sometimes, because sometimes it doesn't. We've all seen circumstances where it's been busted up, and construction traffic is another common thing. You know, people are the lumber trucks and everything, but if you look at the design specs, it's supposed to be able to handle that.
Will we reprofile?
That I don't know.
I believe it was said they would mill down and it would be profiled to the original design, but. Alan, do you know if they would reprofile it?
I'm sorry, sir, what was that?
The question was, will they reprofile the road?
It depends on how they're going to approach it. If they're going to approach it with the catch basins in the center of the road, yes. If they design it with the catch basin, and remember, a catch basin is 2 foot. You know, it's not giant. It's not something big. It will be to the side of the road. In fact, when I went out and looked at it, I believe one of them was by our pump station that would be sitting there. If it was going to harm anything, I certainly would be raising my hand saying, no, I don't want it anywhere near that pump station. But a catch basin could go in there and not have a problem. That's one of the areas that is so busted up too. I hope that answered your question. I hope I had this off of mute.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board? Yes, sir.
My name is Doug Stranahan. My question is, because there seems to be some degree of uncertainty as residents, what should we expect going forward? I understand this is an informational meeting, but what should we expect going forward with regards to some of the detail that will come obviously from the Road Commission? I'm sure they have a plan, or I'm sure there would be charged with the challenge of producing a plan to talk about whatever that reconditioning is or what the original foundation is. My understanding is that in a residential area, what is that, 3 inches typically of asphalt that is held?
No, I mean,
Typically 5.
county spec, well, that's depends. There's a couple different ways
Yeah.
of putting the base in. There's a crushed limestone base covered by asphalt, or that you can do an asphalt base, which I think is 5 inches with a 2 or 3 inch cap over the top of that.
Well, when you use the term remilling, I understand what that concept is. So what you're talking about then is a plan that goes beyond just remilling the existing asphalt.
Yeah, they're looking at doing some water containment. At 280, they're not doing a ton, because a ton costs $800 and whatever $1,000.
About 80.
80, yeah, so
Easy
roughly
for me
9.
to sell.
You know, and that's for curb and gutter, which would catch all of it and would be a better solution, but it's also 3 times the money. So
Right.
It's not just a grind and recap. There's some other work that's going on with that.
I think to the degree of trying to understand it, myself included, I came to this meeting believing that perhaps the Road Commission would be prepared to give us a general understanding of what they are considering at that price point that has been tossed around. That has not happened. So at some point in the future, it should happen. I'd like to know when. And will we be then rescheduling another meeting of this sort for that presentation?
Not normally. This is basically the one and only meeting for the public concerning the special assessment district.
That surprises me.
Yeah, I want to say that's hard for me. I'm coming in thinking there's not a plan yet, we're still developing it, but it sounds like there is a plan, but we're not being shown it, and we're being asked whether we're being support or not, and that's the hard part is.
The plan we have is the engineer's estimate, which I believe was shared with the property owners. That's all that exists today, because until we have a special assessment district in place, we don't undertake the actual engineering and design of the project, because without the special assessment district, there's no method to recover those costs. And so this is the special assessment process. So if there's enough desire for an informational meeting with the engineers from the Road Commission, we can probably get that at some point before but probably not till the design is done. And so the normal sequence of events is if the board creates the special assessment district based on the petition submitted, they'll adopt a resolution tonight to formally create the district. Then we can communicate to the Road Commission. We have an SAD in place. Then we'll execute an agreement with the Road Commission to design and bid out the project. And then the low bid on the project will be the basis of the special assessment role. Now there is an opportunity, if the costs exceed our estimate by more than 10%, there is an opportunity to back away from the project. So at this point, we have a cost estimate, a general description of the improvement to be done, but the details have not been determined, and that's just the way special assessments work.
And lest it not be clear from that discussion, that process is not something we created, okay?
No.
It's a statutory process,
Yeah.
and we're following the statute. And it might not be the best way to do things of this nature, but it is the tool that we have from the state. We didn't do this, okay? We're just implementing.
Yes, sir.
I told Tom when we went into this, I've been down this road before with the Oakland County Road Commission on a property that I own in Waterford Township. And it would be my recommendation, if you can, request from the Road Commission, Genesee Road Commission, and I assume that's where the engineering will come from. I would think it would be very helpful for us if we say, hey, look, we're green light, let's go ahead and see what it looks like. But before we see I think we should see more detail than we certainly have seen tonight.
Well, the one thing that, as Mr. Brooker pointed out, part of the process is the engineering design. And right now, just on the one we're talking about, the charge is $28,000 for the engineering. So they're not gonna do a lot of it if we don't have a potential, better than a potential project, really.
What Bob is saying, you gotta say, oh, I do tonight. And you only get a divorce if the cost is 10% or more than what you've been
Well, there is an
quoted.
avenue for divorce, at least based on my experience. If the project comes out and it exceeds the
Yes.
parameters under which we.
That's the 10%. That's the 10%.
10%, then
Yeah.
we say.
That's what I'm talking about. That's when you get the divorce, but you gotta get married tonight.
Okay.
Pay for the engineering.
So that there is that escape clause of 10% over what they predict, gives you folks the option of either going forward with the project, changing the project, or not doing it. Keep in mind that the only thing the township does is take care of our statutory duties of a special assessment, and then we become the fiscal agent for the folks in the special assessment district.
And the other thing that's not been said out loud is that the petitions represent 72.51% of the frontage on the road. That is a big number, and I applaud this gentleman. I just went through this process a year ago in my subdivision, and I will tell you, I pray for you the results that we have. It is a very difficult thing that this gentleman did, but I am very pleased with what happened in our road. I live over in Panema Tupper area, but to get this put together and to get 72.51%, that's almost a miracle. It's more about 52% of the total parcels, which is something we ask for as a board that's beyond the statutory requirement. So there is a lot of support out there for this from the residents, at least based on the information that we have.
Was there any detail available beyond the short sort of synopsis that went into the actual estimate of 280? I mean, was it just catch basin? I mean, was that what it was limited to? I mean, any information would probably be helpful. I mean, obviously they haven't done the $28,000 design.
Right.
But to come up with that estimate.
Well, I think what you've heard tonight, through Mr. Lawrence, and I don't know exactly what the road commission, they're kind of like the guy behind the curtain in the Wizard of Oz, pulling the levers back there, but they're doing, they do some things in terms of getting the calculation put together. But Mr. Lawrence has been out there. I think they have a walking idea of what it is they think they want to do. Now, the devil is always in the details, so once you fund it, they're going to start drawing it, they're doing the math, and they're gonna, see that, it'll work both from a engineering standpoint and a monetary standpoint. And if it turns out that the walking concept that they're working with isn't viable, that's when you get into the scenario where the cost exceeds 10% of what you've been estimated. But, all I can tell what the township or the county is thinking is the line itemizations. Have you seen that yet of the cost? There's a line itemization of about 10 different items that that tells you something about what they're putting into the equation. But you don't get final engineering until you pay for it.
And if you want to hear those, if you haven't seen it, has everybody seen how they came up with this number?
That was distributed, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only thing I have to give to you folks tonight without an approval to go into the engineering and design phase. So, is there anyone else that would like to address the board?
I just have one question. I live in Enid also. It's just a quick question. What is the time frame for this whole process?
Well, if we get the district created at this meeting, at one of the next couple of meetings, we should have the agreement with the county executed. They'll start the design of the project. Ideally, they finish that over the winter, bid it out over the winter, and with construction in spring or early summer. That's just an estimate at this point. That's usually the typical route. And Alan's shaking his head yes, so I think I'm right.
Yell at me, Alan, if we're not right.
I would never yell at you, Mr. Krug.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to address the board? If not, there's no one on.
No,
Nobody's on Zoom. So I will close the public hearing. Any questions from board members? Mr. Cutter?
So I guess I haven't been through this as many times as some of us, but so my understanding is if we approve this, then unless they get an estimate over 10%, even if it's an estimate that maybe doesn't satisfy everyone or some people don't think is going to drain things properly, then they're still locked into the.
Well, ultimately, the township board, because we've received and verified petitions, it's now in the hands of the township board. So even if the costs are over more than 10% above the estimate we're using today, we're required to accept comment on that at a public hearing before we confirm a roll. But it ends up being up to the board to decide what's in the best interest.
So we still, the board would still at some point have an opportunity not to go forward with it if no one thought that it was.
If the board was convinced that nobody wanted to do it anymore, then the board could vote to stop the project.
Right.
The one thing to remember is once we enter into a contract with the county, any costs that are incurred need to be paid for.
And different on this one, as Mr. Tucker pointed out, having 70% plus or 72% plus is higher than the majority of special assessment resolutions
It's a
or
miracle.
requests.
I mean, it is
Yeah,
difficult.
it's
It is
one of the
difficult.
highest I've heard in the last 20 years so. Any other comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, could you read resolution 2021-16, Mr. Broker, please?
Yes, resolution 2021-16. It determines that the petition submitted meet the over 50% requirement of the statute, approves the preliminary plans and estimated cost of $280,000, creates the Enid Boulevard Improvement Special Assessment District, which includes all properties with frontage on Enid Boulevard, directs the supervisor to create a special assessment roll, and repeals any conflicting resolutions.
I need a motion to adopt resolution 2021-16.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, Mr. Broker.
Patrick?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Krug?
Yes.
Gopal?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Maureen is absent. Reed?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Are there any committee reports tonight? Okay. There are no communication, adoption of orders, there's none, unfinished business, none. New business, proposed hiring, Fenton Township office. Mr. Broker, please.
Yes, I put the memo in the packet, kind of outlining the proposed hiring. When Lisa Lawrence resigned back in May, Megan Gito, who was going to be the receptionist social media coordinator, applied for the election coordinator position, so she made the lateral move, which then opened up the receptionist social media coordinator position again. So we posted that on Indeed, got over 130 applications within 4 days. Scheduled 11 interviews, 7 of which actually were conducted. Narrowed it down to 3, and then our recommendation is to hire Monica McAllister. She has a really good background in social media management, and I think she'd be a real good fit for our office.
Any comments or questions from board members? Okay, need a motion to approve the hiring Monica McAllister to fill the full-time position of receptionist social media coordinator as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Gopal?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine is absent. Kotrick?
Yes.
Krug?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next is proposed hiring Fenton Township Fire Department. Chief Bowles, please.
Good evening. I'd like to recommend that the board approve the hiring of Tate Hall as a member of the Fenton Township Fire Department. Mr. Hall is already certified Fire 1 and 2. He's an EMT, and he's got over 4 or 5 years experience with one of our neighboring departments. And he'd be a good fit for our department.
Okay. Any questions of Chief Bowles?
Do you have any brothers, sisters?
Hope he has a lot more friends.
I would recommend that the motion be made with conditional upon completion of all pre-employment screenings. They're not quite completed. I did get confirmation. He was at the testing site today. We don't have results.
Okay.
Okay, need a motion to approve the hiring of Tate Hall as a member of the Fenton Township Fire Department as amended by Mr. Broker and as presented.
I'll move the motion.
Support. Roll call, please.
Kessler?
Yes.
Krug?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Lorraine is absent. Kotrick?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Gopal?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next is a purchase offer of township-owned property. I hope you've had time. If not, Mr. Broker could quickly review Mr. Diller's offer.
Well, you see it in front of you in the package. It's a 16, by the legal description, about a 16-foot by 270 some foot property on Crane Lake. More than half appears to be actually in the water. It's next to a similar piece that's owned by a property owner down the street who is not on the lake, so I think they use that as their access. You see a dock there. The 32-foot wide piece is actually our sewer pump station. So this is on Horal Court on Crane Lake, and the gentleman who is offering to buy this piece lives directly across the street. You see the second map in the packet, and then we have it up there as well. And so clearly he would like to have lake access for his property, and so he contacted the township, and we said, make an offer, we'll make sure the board sees it, and that's where we are today. Are you Mr. Diller by any chance? You're not. Okay. He thought he would be on Zoom, but I don't see him, so we don't have the opportunity to ask him any questions, but certainly the board can discuss the offer.
The offer, oh, go Jack.
You need to at least advertise it.
Yeah, it wasn't one that we had had on the market ever, because it's, and
It was hit completely out of the blue.
Right.
He came in, the one thing that I have talked to Mr. Roker about, this will give him lake access to, it's Crane Lake. So, yeah. Do you want to say what his offer is?
yeah,
Okay.
it's public.
His offer,
That might be him, yeah.
Mr. Diller?
Yeah, this is Steve Diller. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Yes. So I'm recently acquired the two lots right across, and frankly, I would have bought the lot of the home that I purchased, but she chose to keep the lot, and I found out that there was a sliver of that land, and did understand there was a precedence with my neighbor, and so I'm offering what I think is a fair price, and would genuinely appreciate consideration.
okay. Anything else you'd like to present to us, sir?
No, I don't know that I have anything else to present.
As you see, the offer was $7,500. Personally, I'm thinking that, and here Mr. Tucker knows more about property than I, that we might want to hold off and try to obtain some estimates on the value. But it's the board's idea. Mr. Tucker, anything, please?
Well,
No, I don't want to put you on the
I
spot.
don't want to, cast any rain on the guy's parade, but my first reaction was that's awfully cheap to get lakefront property. I don't know, I'm not an appraiser, I don't know, but the difference between property that is riparian and property that is across the road is night and day. So I do think
Yep.
we do owe some due diligence to the rest of the township folks to make sure that we're getting what we should be getting. And it might be $7,500. I'm not saying that. My initial reaction was, boy, I would have liked to gotten on my lake for $7,500, but that's,
Me too.
that's not the way it works. But I think we need to explore what the value of that is, and maybe some limited advertising, because neighbors on either side might want it. And before we do any of that, I don't know if we lost Alan or not, but this is adjacent to our lift station.
It is, it's close to it.
Yeah, I would want to make sure that there's no needed use with respect to that for access or future expansion or any sort of thing. So we have to make a decision as to whether we want to sell it for those reasons. So I think there's a couple things that need to be looked at anyway before we move on it. I don't mean to say anything negative. I appreciate him coming forward and offering money. As the treasurer, I always like money. But I think we do need to make sure we're doing our due diligence here.
Mr. Patrick?
The price originally struck me as, pretty low too, and so I was curious about it, and so I on the way over here, I drove by the property, just got a look at it, and I happened to see the neighbor there, so I talked to him really quick. The neighbor on 3296 Coral Court, I'm forgetting his name, but the neighbor right there, I was just, I wondered what he might think about it. He said he thinks it's great. I mean, that doesn't necessarily resolve my concerns about the price, but I guess it resolves my concerns about the neighbor being concerned. Anyways, he seemed to think it was a great idea, and sounds like you're all on pretty friendly terms there.
Okay.
So I just figured I should have the board. Also, I looked at the prices on Zillow of the houses around there. There's about 100,000 or a little more maybe gap between the houses on the lake side of the road and the other side of the road, and I think they're mostly the same square footage. Similar square footage is about $120,000 difference. But obviously they're paying for more than just the access. Their whole house is on the lake. They got a beautiful view.
And this parcel is non-buildable, so I mean, there's some
Right.
well, they would shoot me for using that term, but it would be hard to construct anything on this parcel.
Sorry, again, this is Steve Diller, but yeah, my intention is only to be able to get my pontoon on the water. And it's a very small strip of land to do pretty much only that.
Might have to be a very small pontoon. You know, it's up to the board. If you want to do the research that's been questioned, I suggest we table this to either the next meeting or the first meeting in September. Probably by next meeting would be awful fast to get the information we want. Any comments?
I would recommend that we postpone it to this first meeting in September to give us a chance to check the pricing and talk to Alan Lawrence. I think, you know, whether we want to sell it at all. And the two aren't mutually exclusive. I mean, there could be a scenario where we could retain an easement, you know, for something that he wants. So I think we just need to do that due diligence to make sure we've thought it through thoroughly.
Just to make a point, what was normally would be our first September meeting is actually August 30th.
Okay.
Because we backed that one up to avoid Labor Day, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
But that is 2 meetings away.
And if I may, I'd suggest you
Please.
put something at least on the website that you want to sell this parcel. I mean, some minimal advertisement.
Let's see if we want to sell it before, I would think.
I looked at the property and the two ideal, well, the ideal one would be the next person over.
Right.
Because he's probably been mowing it.
Yeah, well, and frankly, he's the guy that gave me the idea to call the township, so he's voting for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out issues that we need to at least have some discussion. And as Mr. Belzer pointed out, you know, I would not want to sell it if it was somebody that wasn't even close to living there.
Right.
So
Across the street's better.
across the street would be an ideal, well, second choice in my mind, but the way they folks work, it's a first choice. So am I correct in saying that we want to table this, as Mr. Tucker said, till August 30th, give us time to try to answer question, Mr.
I did
Patrick?
also want to say along sort of the same line there, we could also always, eventually there's another option, we could sell it contingent upon it not being sold, you know, away from that property, or we could maybe that'd be a restraint on alienating, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer yet. And maybe, you know, we could sell a life estate or something so the township got it back.
Well,
but just there's a wide array of options.
I like that idea that it permanently is attached and unsellable except with the property across the street.
I'm completely in agreement with that, by the way.
Okay, well, we got one of them answered, but if folks, then let's just table it to the first, well, actually, August 30th meeting. We will do our due diligence in obtaining whatever information has been requested.
Technically, it'll be a postponement, not a table.
Yeah, postpone, sorry. I had a 50-50 chance to use the wrong word. Okay.
Appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Okay, we do need a motion to table.
Postpone.
Postpone.
Don't need a motion.
I still like the. I need
I
a
will move the
motion.
motion to postpone until
Okay.
Bob's date.
Support.
There you go.
Roll call.
Tucker.
Yes.
Moran is absent. Gopal.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Prue.
I'm not sure on 50-50. I think I'll vote yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Board comments, are there any comments from any of the board members tonight? On any items? If not, we'll move on to the public comment area. Mr. Broker, would you go over the rules, please?
Sure, since we don't have any, well, we do that, so.
Yeah, we do now, Mr. Diller is there.
Okay, we'll first take public comment from anyone in the audience in person. After that, anyone attending via Zoom that wishes to address the board. Normally we use the raise hand feature, but the only one we have is on the phone, so you can just speak up if he needs to. Then you can unmute, state your name, begin comment. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. Every person wishing to comment will have the opportunity to do so. Again, this is public comment on any issue, whether it was on tonight's agenda or not.
Yes, sir.
My name is Steve Gromziak. Are you on now?
Please,
Okay.
if you want. If
No,
not,
that's okay.
you sure?
I can make it. Okay, my name is Steve Gromziak. I live in Gulfview Point. During this last storm that came through, what was very ironic, they were broadcasting tornado warnings on my cell phone, on the TV and everything, but yet I stepped outside and I can't hear any sirens.
They were gone.
We can't hear it over there. We stepped out on the back deck, I went out in the street and we could not hear it. Lake Fenton Township has grown big time, but yet at the time of a siren, you can't hear them. I know it's not your problem, it's
No,
the...
but we probably
it's
have somebody right behind you that we could invite up to the podium to.
Yeah, we can't hear it.
Okay.
And I think it's a safety issue. You know, I know you got the TV and I know you got the cell phone.
I know that there's been some issues with some sirens. That was a big thing on the news.
Yes.
And I also know that the way the sirens are set up, it's supposed to be so everybody in the county can hear a siren.
Yeah.
Chief Voles.
So they go off in like a grid style when they go off. So all the sirens in Genesee County went off except for the one on Silver Lake Road. The new boards we put in them actually tell whether they went off or not.
Where's the one on Silver Lake Road?
Silver Lake Road is right there at Silver Parkway and Silver Lake Road.
Okay, right
No,
there.
no, no.
Right there by Buffalo Wild Wings.
So we don't have one here.
We have the one at the fire station here and the fire station 2 on Owen Road.
The fire
But-
station here does not go off. I live directly across the street from it. It did not go off, I guarantee you.
And even where we
And I
live...
don't hear it on
excuse me.
Saturdays anymore.
Where we live, over
Yeah,
there...
should go the first Saturday of the month.
We haven't heard it in a year.
Okay. Well, maybe you wanna look into that tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll check the boards on it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right, you know, right by the golf course there, a lot of homes. Like I said, we stepped outside. I went out on the street and looked, and then I looked northeast, and I swear that there was some funnel clouds off in the distance that probably went through Grand Blanc in that area there. But to me, it's a safety issue. You know?
Well, what we'll do is ask the chief to check and try to get back. We'll put it on our website, what we discover. How about that?
Sounds good to me.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Hey, Ryan.
Anyone else?
Maybe you wanna get a number
Please.
from him and you can call him back? Thank you.
Good idea.
Thank you. Chris Ward. I'd just like to remind you about Cider Creek. I don't think it's a very good idea. And I think the lot size is a great compromise would be bigger lots and wooded bands. And I just don't, you know, I think the infrastructure should come first and then the people. The bike trails, and that's all great, but we don't need any more people, I don't think, out that way. So I don't know. Thank you very much.
I like his tenacity.
You should call us if he changes his mind
I
though.
like his tenacity, man. He's here every meeting, reminding us. I respect that.
Is there anyone else that wants to make any comments or concerns to the board?
Except a big rainfall.
Yeah. If not, I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:37. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Thanks, Ryan.
One of the other things too is when the siren, when it was announced, they canceled it before we got the tones as well too.